Okay, Jess is starting the stream. And I'm not seeing anything. Oh, here we go, live now. Okay. Hello, and welcome to Kickass Heroines in Romance. And first, to get us going, I'll just have each of our writers introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their work in Kickass Heroines.
It's like school. I think we're all waiting to be called on.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, you go first, so you go first.
Like none of us are extroverted enough to be like, oh, I'll go. Like, let me talk about me for 10 minutes.
I thought that's what she was calling for. Okay.
Well, Ellis, you spoke first, so.
So I'll go first. I'm Ellis Leigh. I write paranormal romance under this name. I also write contemporary romance and romantic suspense as Kristen Hart. Kick-Ass Heroines are kind of my bread and butter. My tagline for Ellis is strong, sexy romance, because the reviews I get and what my readers say are how much they love the strong women in my stories. So that's why I'm here. Hi.
And who are you going to tag to be next?
I will tag Khloe.
I'm Khloe Wren. I write romantic suspense, both contemporary and paranormal. Lately, it's been all contemporary, but I'm getting back into writing some paranormal stuff this year. I'm in Australia, so it's like 7:30 in the morning here, and I have 2 kids just wanting background noise. I love writing Kick-Ass Heroines. Yeah, I like writing strong men and stronger women. I'm not sure what else to really say. I've been writing for nearly 8 years.
Great.
Who else is? According to my little thing, everyone else has their mic muted, so I'm not sure who to dub in. Is Mandy there?
Yep. Let's bring Mandy on.
Hi. My name is Mandy Rosko. I write paranormal romance mostly, but with occasional contemporary thrown in. I also do MM. And yeah, I think most romance is written with stronger heroines. There's not too much that we read nowadays, or even 50 years ago, where the heroine was, say, weak, or even the delicate flowers have their own strength to them, I find. I mean, the Harlequins of the 60s, they were all nurses or whatever, which was like, that was the businesswoman, that was the career woman, right? That was somebody who was doing something outside of the box, technically, if you were to think about what people were doing back then and who they looked up to. But I think that we all like to write, I mean, people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I like to write heroines how I kind of wish that I was, or that, you could get a snappy comeback in a way that, maybe we're not quick enough to come up off the top of our heads. We could do that in our books. And I think that's where a lot of that comes from. And I like to try and write my heroines after, say, awesome movies that I've seen where I can see an excellent depiction in something. Everyone likes Sarah Connor, right? I just watched the new Halloween, the new one, the 2 years ago one, Halloween with Laurie Strode, right? Everybody loves those depictions, in a sense, of somebody who overcomes like great things. Halloween isn't a romance, and the romance in Terminator ended badly for Sarah, but you get the idea. So that's what I like in my heroines.
And Carolyn, you just joined back again. You can introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your work with Kick-Ass Heroines. Oh, Carolyn, you're still muted.
No, I just like to move my mouth sometimes. Listen, I'm going to have a really hard time remembering to unmute myself and then figuring out how to unmute myself. So. I missed everybody else's introductions. I write historical romance. I write history with heart. That's my thing. And I've got probably 60 some books out. Not all historical and not all kick-ass heroines, but the kick-ass heroines are by far my favorite. We are noticing a trend in historical romance recently where readers want to read more modern heroines. I don't know how else to say that, but we want the heroines that we could be friends with in everyday life. We don't want the wilting flowers, the sweet little violets. We want the ones that'll stand up for themselves and they'll speak their mind. And that's sort of an exciting part of historical romance, is trying to figure out how to make those heroines fit into whatever time period we're writing. I am currently writing Scottish historical romance. Isn't he dreamy? He's blocking the mess that's behind him. That's what I'm sure I'm going to mention this again, but this series is called my Highland Angels series. And it's about 3 ladies in waiting for Robert the Bruce's queen, who are secretly secret agents in disguise. So, yes, they saved Scotland. We can't get much more kick-ass than that.
Who else has a current project that involves a kick-ass heroine? If you want to tell us a little bit about it, like Ellis, for instance, are you working on anything right now?
I'm actually just starting plotting out the 6th book in my Vigilante Justice series as Kristen Hart. Those are definitely kick-ass heroines. All of them could take down the bad guys on their own, but thankfully they have strong, handsome men behind them helping them out along the way. So yeah, those are that's where I'm at the moment. That's where I'm headed. Yeah, that's the only one that I'm working on that I can think of at the moment.
And how about you, Khloe? Are you working on anything right now that involves a kick-ass heroine?
Yeah, like basically I only write kick-ass heroines. But the book that I'm currently working on is Ink and Dust, which is the first book of Silky Ink series, which is a spin-off from my Sharon MC. And Gabs is a lot more subtle in her badassery. Like most of my heroines are in your face kind of kick-ass, where Gabs is a sweet girly girl, but she's a tattooist and body piercer, and she loves horses. So, she gets in there and mucks out stalls and does all of that. And in her book, at the end of the day, she's pretty much going to basically save herself. The hero will come in and help. But yeah, I like my women to, they generally end up getting kidnapped at some point. And I like to have it so that the women basically get themselves out and the hero just tells them along the way. Like they don't just sit there and go, oh dear me, someone's going to come and save me. They work to get their way out. And then the hero just comes in to kind of assist them and help them actually make it out. But they take that first step. But I mean, I have had trouble writing Gabs because she's so sweet, because I'm not sweet. But she is like someone said earlier, even the sweet girly heroines are still kick-ass. It's just a more subtle kick-ass. So this book has been a challenge to write for me because generally my heroines are more overtly kick-ass. But yeah.
What's something that Gabs does that's sweet but also kick-ass? How do you write a sweet kick-ass heroine?
Well, like, she doesn't swear. Well, she swears very rarely. She's just a total girly girl. Like, when she goes to work, she's wearing like, frilly dresses and with floral prints and whatever. But it's like, she goes to a honky tonk to kind of chill out and have a few drinks, and these 2 guys try to grab her to take her out the back, and she's been doing self-defense classes. She kicks their asses, and by the time the hero and the owner of the bar come in, she's got one clutching his face with a broken nose, and the other one's like coming at her like a steam train because like she's this tiny little thing and she's kicked both their asses. But she looked like this, fragile little flower.
That's perfect.
That's the opening scene. It was good.
Well, that's
fun.
perfect. Yeah, no, that really would establish her as a sweet, innocent little kick-ass heroine.
Yeah, she's like, I'm like, look sweet and innocent. I just wanted to have a bloody drink.
So we have a question from one of the viewers. Have any of you been surprised by the way one of your heroines has turned out? So I think that we get into a little bit with like the sweet girl surprising at least the other characters in the story, but has a character of yours kind of run away from you and surprised you?
Mine run away from me all the time. I usually start off with this nice plot for a series, this nice, here's who's going to go with this, and they're going to go with this person, and this is how the couples are going to end up, and this is the order. And then by about the second book, like somebody kind of kicks all that to the curb and we're off on a different adventure. In fact, in my Kristen Hart Vigilante Justice series, it was the third book. The hero, Gabe, was supposed to be with somebody else than what he is in the book. He was supposed to be way later in the series than where he's at. He ended up in the third book because he just screamed the loudest in my head. And that heroine, who was just a little tertiary character, just somebody who had been mentioned along the way, became such a standout in that series and was so ballsy and so like, and very similar to like how Khloe said, like, she's sweet, she's nice. If you met her name's Katie, you'd love her. Like, she's funny and she's kind of awkward along the way. And at some point, somebody breaks into her restaurant and has her pinned, and she grabs the handle of a hot cast iron skillet. Like, and if you've ever done something like that, you know that hurts. It's so painful. And she just mentally, she had to grab it and just swing before she let go. And because it was between her life and that pain, and she took that pain, and just, I still remember writing that scene and being like, there's just no way. And yet I've done something similar where I grabbed a hot pan like that and I couldn't let go because my kid was next to me. So I couldn't let it fall. And yeah, she just powerhoused over that book and that story. And I love it. I love her for it. So that does happen.
Mm. My characters run away, and I can't think of like a situation, like a specific scene offhand, but both male and female characters just do their own thing all the time. They're kind of like your kids. You create them and you hope that they're going to do what you tell them to do, but ultimately they do whatever the hell they want. But yeah, I can't think of an example off the top of my head.
Are there any cliches that you try to avoid while writing your kick-ass characters? Like, Mandy, is there something that you think is like, nah, that's too cliched, I can't use that? Or
Not off the top of my head. I mean, I kind of, it's not really a good question for me because I kind of like cliches. I don't mind them.
how do you keep them
like-
fresh?
Basically, that's what you do. If you find yourself popping into a cliche, it's like, yeah, just maybe twist it around a little bit somehow. But I like cliches. I've always liked the whole idea of, there's a rule in romance, like, if the problem could be solved by the hero and heroine just talking to each other, then there's no romance. I never liked that. I mean, because most people in the world don't talk to each other. A lot of things are just based on misunderstandings. I mean, yeah, if they're right in front of each other and it's like, hey, did you do this? Well, yeah, obviously something can be fixed by that. But when you're talking about like feelings and emotions, like, oh, we had sex the other day, but I'm not going to tell her that I like her. No, I mean, that's stupid. Like, obviously there's nothing going on there. She's like, my dead brother's ex-fiance or something. Like, I can't do that. So obviously things like that, like, yeah, they're not going to say it. And so you can push something forward like that, I find. So I don't know. I kind of like the cliches every once in a while. Like, I kind of hunt for those sometimes just because I want to read them. I think that's why I'm a bit of a sucker for certain types of books.
So what's key, like, and I'll open this up to all of you. What are the key traits that make a heroine kick ass? Like, Mandy, you mentioned Sarah Connor in the Terminator series. I think we all remember Linda Hamilton doing those pull-ups. So physical strength, but is there something else that you're looking for?
Well, you're talking about Terminator 2 there. in Terminator 1, I liked her especially because she almost was a delicate flower, kind of. She had to become the kick-ass heroine by the end. She had to save herself by the end. And there's a deleted scene, actually, with her and Kyle, where she's just saying, fuck it, no, I'm not going with you anymore. And he grabs her and tries to, it's like, no, you're coming with me. And she punches him in the face. And he pulls a gun on her. That is the first sign that she's not quite this little timid, scared waitress anymore. She was going to try and do her own thing. She could defend herself against a human anyway. And without Kyle there, she could defend herself in the end. So I like that character growth. I don't always like kick-ass heroines who are kick-ass immediately the second you see them. And I know that that's difficult to do because, you know, you only have however many words to kind of make that character growth. It doesn't always work. Sarah Connor in Terminator 1 can't be a kick-ass heroine for 50% of that movie. She can't. It was meant more because it was at the end. And Terminator 2 meant more because she had years to do all that. Sorry, my dog is barking. So it's hard. It's hard to do kick-ass heroines, really, and make it believable because, you know, like...
Yeah,
I think I just fall back to, like, I want to see myself in some of these people. And it's just, I know for a fact that, you know, if an authority figure, if an FBI agent breaks in my door and says, no, you stay here, there's a killer on the loose, don't move, I'm not going to move, right? And most of us wouldn't. But the kick-ass heroine knows what she's doing. She might go and check something out because she's got like a weapon somewhere, or, oh shit, you know, my best dog is out there. It's like, I got to go save him, or my nephew, my kid. Like, she'll go out there regardless of whatever the FBI agent says or does, and she'll take care of herself.
I think a lot of the time the physical strength comes later. Like a kick-ass heroine, it's the physical strength is secondary.
No, I'm not talking about physical. I'm talking about emotional too.
I'm sorry. No, I'm just meaning just generally. Yeah. Like,
oh, sorry.
With the character growth, like it starts with the mental, emotional strength, and the kind of physical strength comes later. Just general, in character arcs.
Well, for me, I don't mind if they're weak in the beginning too, but I want to see some hint that they're going to be more than what they are. I can't for the life of me remember the name of this book or even the author who wrote it, but I can always remember what she said. And she wrote this in the beginning of the book, basically begging readers to not give up on this heroine because she wrote her as like such a bitch, like the sort of person who would drive by an elderly man and woman stranded on the side of the road, their tire kind of blown out on like this desert road, and she'll just drive right by them, not even care. Has a cell phone in her hand, fully charged. She can, you know, see what's going on. Nope, doesn't matter. She did a couple of other things in there though, but by the end she was like a sweetheart apparently. So no, yeah, it's not even just about the physical. She doesn't even have to be strong in the beginning, just so long as you can see that happening. And again, I know that's hard because most of us are working in 50, 60, 70,000 words, even 100,000 words. It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I kept rambling there.
No, it's okay. So I'm going to open it up to the others. Like, what is a central trait that for you find yourself giving your kick-ass heroines over and over again? Like, Carolyn, you were talking about the historical fiction. What is the kick-ass thing that historical ladies in your world are doing?
Needlepoint. And actually, that is something a lot of my kick-ass heroines have in common, is that at some point in the book they reference needlepoint and how much they hate it. You know, at some point they're like, God, this is stupid. Why do we have to do this? I actually wanted to go back. You asked about what makes a kick-ass heroine. I have a trilogy, a Scottish trilogy, where the three heroines are all... I like writing Scottish series where the heroines are linked instead of the heroes are being linked, if that makes sense, because I find it easier to write like sets of sisters and more believable that all four sisters could be badass, if that makes sense. Or three best friends could all be badass, as opposed to these three brothers that all happen to marry badass women. That kind of concept. So for my badass, my three that are partners, I've got the one that is really good with weapons, and she carries her, you know, her bow everywhere, and she was raised as a thief, and she spent time in jail and all that. and her character arc is coming to terms with her emotions and admitting that she doesn't always have to be hard all the time. But then she's got one partner who is badass in that she's completely at ease with her own body and what she can do with her body. So she's the sensual one. She's the one that seduces their suspects to get the information they need, that kind of thing. And I think, I mean, she's not, I think she does punch somebody, honestly. Let's be honest. But she's not, you know, slinging swords around. But I think it's badass that she's totally confident in her own sexuality and that she's using it to get what she wants. And my third, the third member is the nerd of the outfit. She's the one that's the intellectual that remembers everything, that puts brings all the threads together and solves the mystery, and that's pretty badass. Again, I think that in a historical setting, the fact that she's confident in her self and her knowledge is what makes her pretty badass. In terms of what every badass heroine has in a historical setting, I mean, a weapon of some sort. Even if we don't actually see them use the weapon, I can't think of a single heroine I've written that I would call badass that didn't have a weapon. And now I'm wondering if I've limited myself. Like, do you have to have a weapon in order to be badass? I don't know. Like, that's Chloe's like, absolutely not, Caroline. I mean, like I said, my heroines don't always use them, but there's always some kind of, like, you know, in my westerns, because I've got 50 something westerns, you know, they're carrying, or they've picked up a gun at some point. There's a gun involved. My Scottish tend to have blades, but I don't know if that's universal.
Yeah, I'm big on the self-defense thing.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm seeing, you know, resourcefulness, intelligence. So somebody in the comments has said, like, why is it culturally that society tends to see a strong woman as being a bitch and not having feelings? But I feel like you guys have all kind of avoided that in your work, that one of the strengths is their feelings.
Yeah, I think one of a Kickass heroine's strength is her weakness. Like, no matter how kick-ass your heroine is, there's got to be some kind of kryptonite in there. And I know, like, in my Fire and Snow series, I have Kit. She's so that my Fire and Snow, the snow leopard shapeshifters and the firefighters that live down in Tasmania. Kit is the only female firefighter with all the boys, and like, everyone just looks at her like she's just kick-ass. Like, the outer image she projects is this infallible, awesome woman that can hold her own and do whatever she wants. But she was kicked out of her biological home when she first turned. Her parents kicked her out, and she ended up living on the streets. And, like, she's scared shitless that the Leap of the snow leopard shifters are going to find out something about her and kick her out. And that's her kryptonite, that she just, everything she does is to prevent them from finding out that she was a comet shifter and that she was born to humans, and that they would kick her out. And I mean, in the end, they find out, and naturally they don't kick her out because they love her. But that's her kryptonite. She's got this really soft center, this really soft heart that just is so battered and bruised, but she hides it behind the hard shell. And I think it's their failings that make kick-ass heroines so awesome.
So I'm wondering, because I remember reading, like, my mom's old school romance novels, and it was always, you know, the hero swooping in. What do you write in a hero to balance your kick-ass heroine? Like, how has that changed over the years in this genre?
I'm not sure if it's changed over the years. Kind of trying to think. I mean, yeah, like, a strong heroine needs a strong hero. But I mean, like, with the case of Kit, her hero, Jesse, like, for the first half of the book, you just kind of want to shake him till his teeth rattle. Because I mean, yeah, he's intimidated. Kit is a force to be reckoned with, and he gets intimidated and he kind of runs scared. But then, in the end, he mans up and comes back. But I mean, that's unusual. Most of my heroes, like with my Sharon MC, they're all ex-military. They're all, or most of them are ex-military. They're pretty hard-ass themselves to begin with, so they're not intimidated by a strong woman. But yeah, Jessie had a big issue with the fact that Kit appeared to be stronger than he was. Well, she is. He's a rally fighter and she's a firefighter. But I'm not sure that it's changed much over I mean, I've been writing for 8 years. I don't think it's changed over much in that short period of time, but I couldn't speak for prior to that.
You're probably talking more like the books from the 80s, right?
Yes, I'm old.
You said your mom's books. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was ill a lot as a kid, so I binged a lot of like classics in the genre.
I was reading Stephen King in the 80s, so it was like,
Yeah.
No, I think it's. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I think kind of those modern tellings, those modern heroines and heroes, and you can go back to the 70s and 80s in some of the books and still see it there. You can see that growth of that heroine coming in. But if you want to knock it down in a simple brushstroke, to the simplest thing is, when they're not a kick-ass heroine, the hero's going to come in and save the day, obviously. And they still do it with kick-ass heroines. But when you have a kick-ass heroine, you can also have a hero that gives the heroine the room to save herself, because she can. I always go back to my grandmother. My grandma raised me and was constantly in my ear, like, never need a man. You don't ever need a man. You can want one, but don't ever need one. And that's the difference. My heroines, they don't necessarily need that hero coming in to save the day. They will eventually figure it out. They will get themselves out of it. It may not be some grand explosion and some grand gunfight or whatever it happens to be. That may not be their style, but eventually they'll get themselves out of it. The hero just is there backing them up and helping them speed things along. So even when my heroes swoop in, they're not overtaking that heroine and forcing her into a back seat and, doing their thing. Like, they're coming together and fighting together, and the heroes let them fight with them because they are just as strong and just as ready and just as willing. And I love reading that in books. So you do see that a little bit in the older ones, but I like seeing it even more now.
I think you get a good visualization of what you're talking about if you want to see a movie version of that. Mr. and Mrs. Smith did a pretty good job portraying that on the big screen. They were backing each other up, essentially, even when they were fighting. There were moments where you could tell he was being a little bit more gentler with her because this is his wife and he loves her, like when he's the first to lower the gun, but she can't lose, so she's like, no, pick it up, come on. And he kind of forces her into a stalemate because he's forcing her to realize she can't shoot him. And then they kind of go on and take on both of their agencies together, which is great. But they do it together. They're working together, and they're kind of learning how to work with each other as quickly as possible because it's a romance novel. They have X amount of time to fix the problem and get out of there. So yeah, like, it's great to see stuff like that. Yeah, that's about it.
I would agree that I think the trick is you have the hero who by the big finale is working with the heroine. He's not swooping in to save the heroine. Ellis pointed out, the heroine could save herself, but they're going to be stronger together. If one of them is great with weapons, the other one counters that with a different skill to blow up the bad guys at the end, or whatever it is. They need to work. He needs to be the type of hero who can work together. And this is going to sound really odd, but my stand up and cheer moment, because we keep going back to movies here, Mandy.
Sorry.
Did you see Frozen 2?
Not yet. Not yet.
I've been wanting to bring that up as an example.
Of Kristoff?
Yes.
Okay. Who has not seen it?
Perfect moment.
Yes.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, I'm not going to spoil anything, but well, maybe I will spoil a little bit. Kristoff in Frozen 2 and I have 2 sons and then a 3-year-old girl. And we watch Frozen with the boys because it's just a great movie. But Kristoff is this first moment where we see on Disney's screen the hero being the kind of hero I want my sons to be. Not swooping in necessarily and saving the day, but there's a moment in Frozen 2 where Anna has got the plan and she's implementing it and she's making it happen, and Kristoff swoops in and saves her, but then picks her up and says, "What do you need?" He doesn't say, "What are you doing?" He doesn't say, "Oh my God, you're gonna die." He doesn't say, "Come over here to safety." He says, "What do you need?" And that's the moment I stood up in the theater and clapped.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that's what we want and I'm not saying Anna's the most badass heroine out there, but that's what we want our heroes to be.
Anna's really a great example of the subtle kick-ass heroine. Like, she's this absolute goofball, but like, she mans up. Like, whenever it's needed, she steps up and she does it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did see
Kristoff's
Frozen 1.
adorable.
He's adorable. I did see Frozen 1 though. Yeah, she's a pretty good example of a layered kick-ass heroine.
Yeah.
And again, I guess it's easier to do that in 2 movies than 1 book. But yeah, like in the beginning of book 1, she's like she is a bit of a girly girl. Well, she's somebody who wants to be a girly girl, but they show her like as she's sleeping, like snot dripping out and her hair's all messed up. She'd be that chick who, goes to bed in a cute tank top and wakes up with it all over the place and her face is all messed up.
One boob out of the sun.
Basically, yeah. But she loves getting dressed up in her dress. She's a social butterfly. She wants to go out and meet people. She's excited for the gates to be open, all that stuff. But she's also the sort of person who, oh, my sister's like frozen everything. I've got to be, without even kind of thinking about it, I've got to be the one to go. Anybody else, like that's kind of what makes these people, because anybody else would really say, okay, whoever is good at hunting and tracking, you go do it. No, it was just she goes to do it. Meanwhile, she's a princess, not even taking any guards with her.
Yeah, and the fact that she puts her sister's life so highly, like, it's okay, I'm going to risk my life, but it's at the cost is my sister not surviving, so it's worth risking my life. That mentality as well is a part of it.
Do you find it challenging to create either a situation or an antagonist who is the equal of your kick-ass heroine, who is a believable obstacle? This can't be too easy.
I don't know if you necessarily need to be equal or even believable. I mean, back to Terminator, there's nothing equal or believable about the machines. It's the idea. And, Mike Myers is
foe.
definitely, Mike Myers can definitely overpower Laurie Strode. I mean, she basically gets away in the first movie by luck, second movie by sheer preparation and massive, trauma and paranoia brought on by that. So I think they'd have to just be, to balance each other out. Like, Laurie Strode, she can talk and she's preparing. Mike Myers is just insane brute strength and focus. So you just have to have one trait over the other, I think, if you want to do anything at all. They don't necessarily have to be exact.
No.
Like Holmes and Moriarty, like exact equals, like butting heads and just trying to see who gives first. You could do it any way you want. It'd be lots of fun, yeah. But you could do it any way you want, really.
Yeah, it's like real life. Like, couples get together, like, some of them are opposites attract, some are similar, some are like, I think it's a reflection of the real world. Like, you can have the woman be stronger than the man, or the man be stronger than the woman, or them be equal. I think I've written all of those examples. I don't know, my writing's very character driven. They just they pick their own partner, really, and then I just kind of go along for the ride.
Fine, I'll write your book.
I'm getting a sense that quite a few of you are more pantsers than plotters.
Yeah.
I have actually, that book I had, the Ink and Dust, I had the first time ever I had to plot. I got completely, like, normally I would just get like a concept and then be able to belt out the book. This book has just been, it won't flip and write. And so I actually spent 4 days planning this one out. The first time in my life I have like a plan for the whole book. It's already gone off. It's already like deviated, but the general plan is still there. And it's the first time in 8 years I've planned an entire book before I write it.
Nice.
I have to plot lightly. And by that, I mean Gwen Hayes' book, Romancing the Beat.
Yes,
that's
a
my
good one.
That's my plot. Like, I used to be a pantser, but then my plots would just kind of wander, and it wasn't just saggy middles. It would be like 3/4 saggy.
Yeah.
And so I had to kind of plot those beats out so that I had a destination in mind. I knew where I was going. It shifts all the time because my writing is completely character driven, but I know in my head and on that piece of paper that at this point, I need these two to at least be holding hands. So let's get them there. I know that I need this plot in the background, this suspense in the background. I need something at this point to, keep that ramped up and make you not forget about the fact that, hey, these people are actually in danger and they're not just running around town kissing all over the place. But it's a very light plotting that I do.
I need to get that book, Romancing the Beat. I hear good things about it.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Super simple, very clear.
Yeah.
So not a lot of background and not a ton of information. Sometimes you get a plotting book and it's like 500 pages.
Yeah,
and like, really, come on, like the hero's journey thing. My brain puts up a big roadblock and goes,
Yeah.
But Gwen's is like, here are, I think it's like 12 beats that you need to hit. And it's clear English, and she gives an example, and it's like, oh, okay, this I can do.
She basically like writes a short book while she's going and saying, if at this point, this is what needs to happen, and let me give you an example of our pretend book.
Yep.
I write probably shorter than all of you. Like,
oh God, yeah, that's nothing.
like
I can write shorter than that. Don't worry.
Oh, all right. But like so. I produce. I might publish once or twice a month, and I've realized I'm more comfortable with being a pantser. George R.R. Martin, as I recall, refers to them as architect authors, in that you're building something, versus gardener authors, in that you're planting something and watching it grow and kind of helping it grow. And I'm totally a gardener. I'm character. I'll plant those seeds and I'll be like, do you feel like kissing? Do you guys want to kiss? You can kiss if you want. But I realized that I can write a lot faster if I plot out where I'm going, as opposed to like each day I'm going to get up and write a chapter today. What chapter am I going to write? Well, if I have some clear idea of what that is going to be, I can write that a lot faster. So my books have 10 chapters, no matter how long they are. So I know I always plot out chapter 1, 2, 5, 9, and 10. And then, like what has to happen by chapter 5, by the midpoint, this, that, and the other thing. Well, you better use chapter 3 and 4 to get to that point, honey.
Well, that makes sense. I like that. For me, I'm mostly the pantser too, but I do need to know at least their names, at least what they are, if they're shifters, what their jobs are, where they live. I have to know enough, and especially what's driving them as well before I can really do anything. After that, I can just kind of go, usually pretty quickly. This book I'm working on right now is giving me some troubles, but I think I'll check out Romancing the Beat. Maybe that'll help me out. Right, dog?
Yeah, so where do you start with your novels? Like, is it a character comes to you and you're like, okay, I need to write her story, or is it a situation and then you put the characters into it?
It can
For
be.
me, it's half and half.
Mm.
Oh, come here.
I have totally had the situation pop into my head, and I'm like, what kind of characters would be in that situation? And what point in the book? Is that the beginning of the book, or is that halfway through, or is that the end point? And how would I develop a character to reach that situation? And then, but like if it's a series, well, then I know I have to write. I know book 3 is going to be about so-and-so because I introduced them in book 1, and now I have to write, Yeah,
I'd say situational too. You put like one of my series under a different name is basically dragon shifters who are essentially boxers or, you know, UFC cage fighters, but they need their mates to essentially through like, you know, cheering or like kind of power them up and even take their pain in some cases, and they need that. So it's like, okay, what kind of universe does that essentially, and what are those guys getting paid? Like, what's it like on the amateur level? Are dragons just running around finding people that they think will be good for them? Like, what's going on there?
Sorry, I keep looking over to the side because there's been a little technical hiccup with the live stream, but Jess is working on it, so I think we're okay to just keep going.
Oh, okay.
Get out of
Okay,
there.
yeah. Some people can see it. Okay. So we've been kind of circling around pop culture. Is there another author's book where you're like, yes, this is my ideal kick-ass heroine?
Katie Wilde. Katie Wilde's Hellrider series. Jack and Lily. Lily is, they call her Zumi. She's an ex helicopter pilot, and she's the only female in a motorcycle club. And there's this great scene in that book where she's about to get into this fight, and it's almost like a planned fight. And so she grabs her hair and a knife and just cuts it down because she knows if that guy gets a hold of her ponytail, like he's going to take her to the floor. And so she's smart. She's like, nope. And so she just cuts all that hair off, and she's like, I'm in it. Let's go. That to me she's the ultimate. Like there is there's nothing more. That's my favorite.
Christine Feehan for me, like basically every female she writes is a kick-ass. But like Gator and Flame's book, which is in the Ghostwalker series, Flame ends up, she's got cancer, dying, and she's going to save this other girl, this girl that's been kidnapped and is being trained to be sold as a prostitute. So she's stuck in the swamp, and the bad guys are training her. So she's got cancer. She knows she's dying. She's broken her arm. Alligator grabs her when she's out in the swamp and breaks her arm. So her arm's like, you know, hanging off by whatever. And the bad guys pick her up in this limo, and they're trying to drug her. They give her this drink, and she works out that it's drugged, and she continues to fight. And for me, like Flame really stands out. Like she knows she's on a time limit, and she's been through hell. Her life was hell. She doesn't quit. She's like, no, I've got jobs to do. I'm not going to quit. That one for me stands out.
Okay. I can't put me on the spot here. I can't think of anything like a big one off the top of my head, other than, I know this isn't romance, but Hunger Games. Like,
that's valid.
Okay. I loved Katniss Everdeen. I thought she was great. Just an excellent portrayal of, you know, what do you do when you're thrown into that situation. And I like how she's a bit of a tough girl going in, but she's tougher coming out. But it's realistic too, because she's not unfazed by it either.
Yeah, there's some interesting exploration in that series of PTSD for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have a favorite kick-ass heroine that is kind of a model for you?
I'll probably think of something great after all this is done, and then
I know, right? As soon as we're done, we're like, oh, I didn't give so and so a shout out.
Yeah.
My favorite author is Lindsay Buroker, who writes sci-fi and fantasy, not necessarily romance, but she's incredible, and everything she writes involves a heroine that I would consider kick-ass. Her series usually tend to be from both the man and the woman's point of view, although I don't think they're technically count as romance. But she's got the one heroine who's, not maybe that physically strong, but she's really good at leading people, and she's really intelligent, and she's always coming up with schemes. And then she's got the other heroine who is really kick-ass with the knife and the sword, and does all that. And then she's got one heroine who's like just trying to get by, but then she showed all this magical power shows up, and now she has to try to figure out how to come to terms with the magic, and that makes her kick ass because she's got the inner strength and the morals and whatnot to make it work. And I think that's really cool. It's all of her heroines are different kinds of kick ass.
Oh, I know a good one that I just Nora Roberts, her in-depth series. Eve Dallas, I think that's a pretty kick-ass heroine right there. Over how many books does she have in that series now? Like fucking 150 by now. Like holy shit. Yeah, so that's a go-to if I'm in a mystery mood, which I have to be in a mood for a mystery. So it's only maybe once or twice a year, but that's one of my go-tos.
Okay. I'm thinking about you guys are just so great at. Oh, Kathy would like to see the dog. Somebody's dog's been barking in the back.
Oh, mine. Zorro, come here, babies. Come here, buddy. He thinks he's in trouble. No, babies. Come here. Come here. You're fine. Come here. Get up here. Zorro, come here. Yeah, there you go. Good boy. I don't know if you can see this dog. Yeah, buddy. You want a cookie? I'll get you a snack
he's so
later.
cute.
Yes. Hey, buddy, look at the camera.
Just because this is like the situation that's on everybody's minds right now, do you
Good boy.
think that there's any scope for a kick-ass heroine story related to what's going on with COVID? Do you think you would write that?
I'm thinking an upcoming series for later in the year I'm going to base around the bushfires that we had this past summer here in Australia, which is January. So I can see that series is going to lead me into the coronavirus. So I'm currently battling the question internally because I'm not sure what to do. I don't know whether to keep the series as a short timeline so it's only happening while the fires were happening, so it's all over before Corona hits, or whether to delve into it. It's a hard one. I'm not sure. I honestly don't know what decision I'm going to make on that.
Well, for anyone who writes contemporary, it's going to present a challenge, right?
Like,
I see Carolyn kind of laugh, and she's like, "I could do the Black Plague."
Okay, I have heard a lot of talk about love in the time of quarantine. Okay, like people joking around about it. I haven't heard anybody actually doing it, but we're taking it kind of in a different direction. Instead of saying, let's write about the quarantine or let's write about the lockdown, a couple of us have pushed up time frames to produce escapism books. So I've got a contemporary cowboy coming out next week that's part of a multi-author series. Kirsten Osborne and I threw it together a couple of weeks ago because we were like, what does the world need? What do our readers need right now? They need fluffy, funny, laugh out loud, easy escapism. So we're doing a sexy contemporary cowboys called The Cowboys of Cauldron Valley. And that was produced specifically because we're all stuck inside right now. This is a series that I actually started last month, and I'm in love with it, and it was perfect. The series is called The Hots for Scots. Book 1 is called A Scot Mess. Book 2 is Scott on Her Trail. Book 3 is In Scott Water. You see where we're going. Readers are calling it like laugh out loud, hilarious, exactly what we need right now. It's the heroine of book 2 is a highwayman, of course, a highway woman, and that comes up a lot. There's book 1 is 2 identical twins fall in love with 2 other identical twins, and the tagline is a comedy of errors of Shakespearean proportions. Like, it's ridiculous, just fart jokes and people falling down and all sorts of. Well, I find it's my humor, so I find it funny. But I'm getting a lot of responses from how much people appreciate reading that right now. So I guess I'm not talking about writing the quarantine, writing the COVID-19, but I'm changing. I think a lot of us are tweaking how we're producing books right now to be what people need.
Yeah. I'm incredibly grateful that like my Sharon MC series is still like I'm super like anal over my timeline, and I've got like I can tell you ask me a scene and I can give you the date that it happens because I keep my timeline that rigid, and I'm only up to early 2018. So for that series, I'm not going to have to worry about it for I know I get the feeling that I think people aren't going to want to read about the virus while we're suffering through it.
Yep.
Once it's done and over with, then I think as a genre it might grow in popularity. But I think for now, I mean, yeah, if you're writing current day book, you can't ignore it, but I don't think it would be wise to make it a focus at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's going to depend on how everything plays out in the end and how bad things get. And, to this day, like, I don't want to read books about 9/11. I don't want to read that in a romance. I don't want to read it in anything. That trauma is still there, and I have no interest. I don't want to revisit it. So, yeah, I think at some point, it really will depend on how this goes. I think there may be a market for it at some point, but if it is as bad as what some projections are, I don't know that would ever be marketable.
It might just end up being part of somebody's backstory, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
totally.
like that's their essential scar.
I mean, a lot of us are going to end up with PTSD or, like some version of it because of this, So
I already have that.
I do like the idea of now is the time for escapism. Do you think, in a way, Kickass Heroines function like that for a lot of readers who it's kind of a wish fulfillment of, in that situation, I wish I'd said that, or I wish I'd done that.
Yeah, we're writing it because it's escapism for us. I mean, like I'm writing the Kick-Ass Heroine because that's how I want to be. So why not let somebody else do that? I don't actually know how to beat up a man. Confession.
I theoretically know how because like I worked my way up to a blue belt in karate, but I've never actually done it. And to be honest, I don't think that I actually could physically, like I don't know that I'd have the guts to actually do it. But I could explain to him how I could beat him up. Yeah. I theoretically know how to look after myself. But it's all theory.
I've written books about how to beat you up, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Look out.
So to close out, so we've got about 8 minutes left. What is not necessarily a project you're working on right this moment, but your next idea that you're kind of kicking around, the thing that you can't wait to get working on?
My next idea that I super can't wait to work on, sorry, I'm jumping in, is I've been invited to write in the Royal Bastards MC multi-author series, and that's the series that is going to be set here in South Australia and it's going to start with dealing with the fires. And I'm basing it around Egyptian mythology. So I'm actually doing a couple of courses in ancient Egypt through an online university of Pennsylvania. So I'm getting university certificates on ancient Egypt before I write my book. So I'm like super excited, and the world building is really coming together for that. So that's like super exciting, but I'm not going to be able to write it for probably another month because I've got to get other stuff written. But yeah, that's like super.
Congratulations.
Nice.
Well, I'm working on my Hots for the Scots series. That'll take me. I'll produce one of those. I'll put one of those a month out for the next, I don't know. There's 6 brothers, so 7 months maybe. I'm doing the contemporary, the fun cowboys. I actually find it a lot easier to write contemporary after I consider it like a palate cleanser after I've been nose deep in historicals for so long. And I write Scottish, so I'm like really into like the dialect and everybody speaks a certain way. And then I get my cowboys, and my cowboys are always saying things like, you can, and then I have to go back and remember, no, we're cowboys, we say, But I find it easier and fun to write the contemporaries. So that'll be for my next couple of months, I think. Just working on both of these series.
Ellis, you got anything in the hopper?
I am actually releasing a book this week that is way overdue, and it's a paranormal. It's very light and funny. It's from my Mates and Macarons series, and if you want to know how late it is, they are reindeer shifters who both know Santa Claus, so you can take a guess when this was supposed to come out. But the world falls apart and things get pushed back. And then, I've got a few series I want to tie up loose ends on, and I'm just letting my brain wander and pick something else to write to get excited about. So there are options out there. I just spent like 6 months working on a mystery, no romance, like a literal paranormal mystery. I just love the book, and I'm excited to go back to that world and take that same heroine on her next mystery. But we'll get there eventually. I'm usually very pushy with myself. Like, I have to write so much a day. I have to do so much a day. And this has reminded me that I need to show myself grace and let myself just stop sometimes and give my brain a break. So we're on a little bit of a break. I'm Ross today. Yes, exactly. That's a good one. Yeah. I need a break. So Christmas Story will come out this week.
It'll be ready for next Christmas.
April.
Perfect.
That's great.
Like you said, everybody needs some escapism. There you go.
Yeah.
And Mandy, do you have anything that you're excited to get going on, or?
I guess the cop-out answer would be all of them, but there is a particular idea that I don't know how I'm going to fit this into an actual romance, but I have the romance aspect of it kind of played out. It's, yeah, I'm going to have to find out whether or not I'm even allowed to even write about this, but the basic premise, without going into too many details about what he's doing, is a vampire vigilante who, instead of like skulking around at night seeking out victims to kind of prey on, he goes online and hunts for maps, and he just kind of meets up with them and then kind of takes them out. And the heroine's like, "What are you doing? What are these?" He's like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be the guy I'm killing tonight." Okay, we'll see if she'll probably get involved.
Interesting. Yeah, that's great. Before we wrap up, do you guys have any questions for each other?
Relax.
Writer to writer.
I sent you a friend request. I'm legit. You should friend me.
So the question is whether or not we saw it.
Like, God, Caroline, I don't want to be your friend.
Sit. None that I could think of. I didn't prepare a question.
It's okay. That is okay. Well, if that is it, I think we had a really great discussion. We went all over the place. We got some good movie recommendations,
Yeah.
some amazing book recs. We found out how some of us feel about pantsing versus plotting, or gardening versus architect, that is beautiful, and I'm definitely going to use that going forward. It was a pleasure to meet all of you, and stay healthy. Stay inside.
Do our best.
Thank you, and have a good night.
Have a good one.
Or morning
Mwah.
for Khloe.
Yeah, that too.
It's 8:30 now. Thanks.
Oh my goodness.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.